What's up everybody, hope you're having an amazing day so far. I'm your host Phil, and today's video, we're going to build ourselves a super compact, but yet very powerful pedal board. Let's roll that intro clip, and then check out what it's all about. I gotta break a sad secret to you, and I hope that you all are powerful enough to stand through this, but big, heavy guitar tube amplifiers and full stack rigs, they're not being used anymore. And also for me being a huge fan of guitar tube amplifiers, I have like 9 or 10 of them in that room over there. You know the wall, which I had usually over here with all of the amplifiers, all of the cabinets, all of that stuff is crammed into that room because we're recording drums very soon in here. Anyhow, that stuff, when playing live on local smaller shows, I don't think it's that much, like of a convenience factor anymore to bring with you a huge guitar stack which you have to carry and you're blasting away the front audience. The trend is going more and more to downsizing your rig. And with all the technology at our disposal, starting from Tonix to the NAMM player to the big boys like Line 6 Helix Stadium, which is going to be released soon, Axe-Fx, all of those small form factor stuff, which is being released by Moore, by Veilton, all of that cool stuff makes it more and more convenient to just simply go with that setup because it really, really sounds good. And I'm a huge advocate for that personal setup since I have been using the NAMM player by Dimehead Electronics since last year, May, exclusively on live shows. And I kid you not, every single time we play, people are really like complimenting the tone which we're getting because it's so clean, it's so punchy, it sounds good. It's just amazing. Being the natural tinker and gear hoarder which I am, I thought to myself, how much to the extremes can I take the downsizing game without making any substantial sacrifices? How far can I get with that one? And this over here, what I've shown you before, is the end result of exactly that quest. So what I thought, which would eventually make some interesting content for you guys out there, is we're going to talk through this board, through these single components. I'm going to actually tear apart this board in its entirety, so to speak. Then we're going to talk through what I have chosen, why I have chosen that, and then we're going to kind of rebuild this over here and then have a sound demo. So let's get straight into it. When I'm thinking about a downsized rig, there are a few things which I cannot really sacrifice, which I definitely need. One of them is I need a wah pedal. I use wah pedals like I am like a wannabe Kirk Hammett. It's just my thing. I love wah pedals, and the most important thing about that wah pedal, it has to be one of those which auto reset to their position. So it has to be kind of spring loaded in that regard. That is one of the requirements. The second requirement is I need some sort of modeler which is capable in an easy fashion to flick between 2 different presets. I need one rhythm and one lead preset. The thing is, because I got a double duty as a vocalist and a guitar player, it has to be very convenient, very easy. It has to be kind of a foolproof method, meaning that in the best situation, there's only one switch which toggles between these 2 presets. Another thing which I absolutely need and is not debatable is dual mode operation. What I mean by that is I have to have one output which is going out without an impulse response and one which is going with an impulse response so that I can fire up a cabinet and also in parallel send my signal to the front of house in order to mix that through the console. That gives me full flexibility so that I can cater towards any situation which we come across, being it either we can use our in-ear systems or something is broken and we have to go the traditional way through the cabinets. And then speaking of the different 2 outputs, of course, that leaves me that I have to have some sort of a power amp, which is powerful enough to actually fire up a cabinet so that I can compete against Gabo, our drummer. He's a heavy hitter. We play metal, so it has to be kind of loud. And on the DI side of things, so meaning the output with the impulse response, I want it to be somehow protected against phantom power. I don't want any phantom power coming in, destroying my gear. So that means I need to have either a phantom power blocker or something which acts as an active DI box. That way I can always tell the guy, hey, go ahead, make phantom power a thing, and then I can just plug it in and then I'm good to go. And last but definitely not least, I need some sort of a wireless guitar system. I need to transmit my guitar signal wirelessly to the pedal board so that I have full freedom of range and motion, and I'm not really bound to the pedal board in that regard. Even though I'm still bound to the microphone, I want to have all of that freedom to just run around on stage, just do my thing. So now that we have spoken about all of the requirements of my pedal board, let's now go ahead and rip this thing apart, tear this down apart, and then we're going to talk about the single components of this pedal board before we then rebuild this and listen to what it sounds like. I've now stripped the board of all of its elements over here except for two different things, which I'm going to explain in a moment. So let's start with the board over here as a first step. I have chosen the Rock board by Warwick Duo 2.0. Now, the reason why I've chosen this is, of course, obviously it's super small. It has this grid setup over here where you can put some cables really easily through. That was very appealing to me. Another thing which I really liked was that it has a quite steep angle. So if you look at this over here, this is quite high in that regard. And the reason why I needed to have this clearance over here in that regard was because I'm using the Harley Benton Power Plant 1 AC Pro, I believe it's called, and that has higher profiles, and it just needed to fit over here. So as you can see, there you go. That's why I've chosen this particular board over here. One thing which you can recognize, which I have customized over here, are these two setups over here. In the end, I only have to make sure that I get one power cable plugged in here, one XLR cable for the front of house, and my wireless transmitting dongle, and then I'm good to go. I'm ready to rock. Power supply, as I said before, is the Harley Benton Power Plant 1 AC Pro, I believe it's called. Yeah, as I said before, 5 isolated outputs, each 9 volts, 500 milliamps. Let's see if we can read that over here. And the nice thing was that it has an IEC input, so that makes it very nice and tidy in regards of what I anticipated with that IEC plug over here, that I just have to ram in that power cable, and then I'm basically good to go. Awesome power supply, very stable in its outputs. I tested this with a multimeter, works wonderful and is very affordable. I've spoken before that I need something which protects me from phantom power coming from the mixer desk. And yeah, first off, I got this through connector over here, XLR, female to male. You can see it over here in the pedal board. And then I got me this over here. This is the, hang on, that way, Fisher Amp Mini DI box. This is an active DI box, which has no coloration whatsoever. Sounds really good. I mean, neutral in that regard. Works wonderfully. Active DI box is powered by phantom power. You can't get better than this one, and it fits right in here. This is so amazing. We're going to see that when I'm going to do the build. This was a great investment. Was a little bit costly, I think around about 70 euros or something, but worth every single penny when it comes to saving space. Let's move over to the first element in the chain, which is my wireless system. For this, I'm using the X-Vive. I think it's called the A58. This is the 5 gigahertz setup over here. We got one receiver and one transmitter. So basically these are, you know, like battery powered small wireless transmitters and receivers. You just plug one into the pedal board, one into the guitar. You put them on both, and then they are working absolutely fine. One thing which you have to take into consideration when using these over here, which I found out, is that they attenuate the signal from your guitar to your rig by round about 8 dB. You have to compensate for that somehow, be it turning on the gain on your amplifier a little bit higher. If you have like a digital pedal where you can really set the dB value, then act accordingly, boost that signal by 8 dBs. Otherwise, you're gonna lose gain. This is something which I learned the hard way when trying out stuff. I mean, thank God I have found this out before I actually gigged with it and was then wondering why it's so undergained. But still, nonetheless, very stable connection, works really well, and in this nice little soft case, it's awesomely protected. Really cool stuff. I dig this wireless system a lot. Next up, we have the one and only Morley Wah Boost. First off, it's a Morley. I love Morley wah pedals. I've always been a fan of Morley wah pedals. I have tried some Dunlop stuff before, but when it comes to the angle on which you're stepping on that small mini Dunlop pedal, which has that auto return stuff, I didn't like it that much. Morley is a little bit flatter in that regard from an angle perspective. It's way more comfortable for my foot resting on that one and then playing with that. I just know exactly how these things work. I use the Mark Tremonti since over 16 years ago or something. The 2009, 2010, around that ballpark. I've bought it, so yeah, quite a long time ago. Another thing which made me gravitate towards this particular wah pedal, which is, by the way, the MT MK2 Wah Boost, is that this one, sound-wise, is the closest to the Mark Tremonti wah. According to the support people at Morley, sounds absolutely immaculate. Now, let's move on to the actual enabler of this entire project. Without such a device, all of this stuff would be absolutely futile. And that is, in this case, the Tonex 1. Yes, of course, the one and only Tonex 1. And at this opportunity, I gotta give a shout out to the people at IK Multimedia. When I talked and pitched some ideas with them at the Guitar Summit, the marketing manager of IK Multimedia just reached, like into their closet thing, and they handed me over this over here. This over here is the Tonex 1 Special Edition with all the Van Halen wah sounds. I want to make a dedicated video on this particular Tonex 1 edition at some point in time because I think it sounds really awesome, and of course, the Tonex ecosystem works fantastic. Even though I'm a huge fan of the NAMM player by Dimehead, it's unfortunately way larger than this one over here. So this will absolutely work for what I anticipate it to do. And it has all of the features which I set out for it to do. It can capture my tone awesomely. It has 2 presets. You toggle them through this foot switch over here and then you're good to go. So there's a lot to like about this setup over here. Talking about the next piece of my pedalboard, I have to point out one flaw, or one weakness I would say, in the Tonex ecosystem, and that is that the stereo out of these devices do not offer like a dual mode operation, sending out one signal without the IR and one signal with the IR. You always have to either turn it on or off for both of the outputs. In my personal opinion, that's an oversight which they should rectify at some point in time, but I'm not sure if they actually can. If the hardware allows for it, I cannot judge on that one, but that's what I personally feel about this one. Nonetheless, there are some cool options in the market, and I have chosen to go with one which I already had in my possession, and that's the More Radar. The More Radar is very capable. It has like a small EQ also added. So for people who don't know what this is an impulse response loader. You can load IRs with this one. Works absolutely fantastic. You can then also adjust some EQ settings and all of that stuff. We're going to explore what this sounds like. We're not going to dive into the menus, but we're going to listen to what this sounds like in a moment. And what I find pretty cool is that you've got also some headphone outputs, because that means that in theory, I could just use this entire board in like a vacation setup and just use the headphone output for that one. All right, let's go over to the other path. So because the More Radar in theory, would then go to the Fisher Amps Mini DI box, which I already introduced to you. That would then go to front of house. Now we're gonna look at the other signal path where things go to the cabinet. And here first I'm using the TC Electronic Spark Mini Booster. This one is just there to give some transparent boost so that the power amp, which is the heart of the operation when it comes to making things loud, the Harley Benton GPA 100, that gets a sufficient level in order to really push it into the cabinet and then making it easily compatible with a heavy hitter metal drummer. So with that out of the way, we have already talked now about all of the different elements over here. Let's now go ahead and talk about pedal order. Before we now dive into actually building up the stuff, let's talk about the pedal order. As I said before, the very first element will be my wireless system. For this, I'm taking already the board at my place, so the wireless system is coming over there. Next up, we got the wah pedal, which is going to be placed over here. Since I know about the clearance of all of the other pedals and stuff like that, I am kind of overstretching the edge a little bit knowingly, and you can already see that the Morley is a little bit bigger than the pedal board, but that is not an issue for what I'm anticipating over here. Then next up, we have the Tonex 1, which I would place somewhere around here. Yeah, so that means that goes over there with a cable. That will allow that I can easily switch the lead preset and then do my wah-wah thing and then easily go back to the rhythm. That's an important requirement which I had when setting this up. The next thing which I want to facilitate is the power amp, because I cannot, avoid having this on my board. So I will again leave a little bit clearance here on the side. So this would be kind of the edge. I'm going a little bit above the edge, knowing that I can do so with my setup, and then I have enough room in order to set up my TC Electronic Spark over here. And then in the end, my Moore radar unfortunately will not fit normally over here, but therefore it will easily fit over here. Give a little bit clearance over here so that I can reach the jack of my power board, and then have like a cable run through to the back where I then would have like the DI box, which is then set up over here on this connector. However, we got to set up things one by one, so let's tear apart again this stuff and actually get to some cabling. And there we have it. And now we're plugging that into here. Everything is turning on and powering on. That is a pretty satisfying feeling, I must say. We have now set everything up. Now let's get to actually listening what this stuff sounds like. All right, I got now everything set up. So we have over here this beautiful Gallagher Guitars Espada Limited Series with the Hypernovas. Awesome, awesome guitar. Thank you so much for the fine folks at Gallagher Guitar for sending this over. That then goes to the X5 into the Morley, which is currently not being used because it's not under my feet. That then goes to the Tonex 1, which currently has a capture loaded of my EVH 5153 boosted by the Lichtlam Audio King in yellow. You can download this actually on ToneNet, so be sure to check that out. Link is going to be down below in the description. That then goes to the Moore radar with an impulse response from Celestion Digital with a 4x12 with creambacks. This is going to be my in-ear monitoring sound. This is going to be the sound which I then send to the front of house so that they then can manipulate that and make it usable for the audience. This is what it sounds like. yeah, this sounds awesome. Then I got my lead tone over here. All right, the next setup in which I want to check out this setup is actually using it as a full-blown amplifier. I got this pedal board now hooked up with a guitar speaker cable into my 2x12 Harley Benton Vertical with the G12 Vintage from Marshall. These are basically the V30s, which are built into the 1960 AV cabinet, and they sound really awesome. So what I got over here is, you can see that the GPA 100 is pretty loud. This is what I personally would say is band practice volume, and you're gonna see now in a moment why I need the TC Electronic Spark. But let's first get into a little bit of some riffing, and then I'm gonna engage the TC Electronic Spark. Now, to be very honest, this is not loud enough yet for practice volume, but as soon as I engage the TC Spark, it's going to be absolutely sufficient. Yeah, let's check out now the Morley wah pedal, how that sounds. Let's wrap up this video with some closing thoughts. I mean, there's not really a conclusion which I can draw out of this one over here, except for I love building rigs, you know, like it's always super fun to kind of think yourself through the gear, start the project, realize where the issues are, try to work around that. So it's a little bit of a problem solving thing, which I really enjoy and is part of my profession actually as a technical support engineer. So that's cool stuff. Doing stuff like this is really like a hobby, like a passion of mine actually. It's on par with actually playing the instrument itself, building up these types of rigs, trying to kind of push the boundaries on what's possible and whatnot. Could I do it potentially a little bit easier? I think so, yeah. I think if I would go ahead with like a very cheap modeler that has like an integrated expression pedal and stuff like that, then maybe I could get away with also some decent tones. But I personally like to customize my stuff over here as I did over here. I had some specific requirements like the Morley type wah and having like that DI box and IEC input, which is super convenient. So it's just kind of like 2 cables in, you're done. It's quick to set up. It works well. It sounds awesome. You heard it for yourself. I'm a huge fan. And the most awesome thing is everything fits in this small Tommen bag, which is actually meant for the Behringer XR18, but it fits perfectly in there. So I can just do like this and it fits in there. I can then go ahead, take my wireless thingy over here. Are they still on or are they turned off? Oh, this one's still on. Haha. Gotta make sure that that's always turned off. Take that with you. Put that over here in the front compartment. Same with the power cable or with, you know, like a speaker cable, whatever. Then you flap this over, close this. And this over here would be my complete touring rig without actually making any sacrifices. And that's the important part. You know, like making no compromises at all and still having a very, very small form factor. As you can see over here, I can actually lift it with one hand. I can travel by train with this one, take a gig bag with me. I'm good to go. I can rock the show. This is amazing. Technology has brought us so much convenience in the last years. I think that this over here, stuff like this, will be the future of guitar playing, of guitar rigs, of musicians' setups. So let me know down below in the comments what you think about all of this, what I demonstrated so far. I mean, we can have like a global discussion around are amplifiers irrelevant or something clickbaity like that, but I don't think so, that they really are. I still love my tube amplifiers. They're still gonna get a, you know, renaissance as soon as we're done here recording drums. But, you know, for convenience factor, playing live, I think this stuff is awesome. If you enjoyed what I did over here, even though it was a longer video, then please go ahead and do all of that algorithm enhancing stuff. You know, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment down below, share with your friends, share in the pedalboard groups. Would love to hear your thoughts on this one. I'm gonna go now to sleep because it's in the middle of the night, and see you hopefully in the next video. Until then, keep it metal.